Do you look gay enough? That's
do I look gay? That's the question.
You look like a Backstreet Boy, so yeah, pretty much.
Awesome. Don't you dare tell me I look like a Backstreet Boy. I have way more street cred than them. I'm way cooler.
Everybody has.
Well, no, actually, no, I'm a fucking nerd. I'm not cool in the slightest.
New kids on the block.
But I'm going for the 100-footer today.
Welcome to Murdering a Podcast. We wanted to do something a little bit different today, and this might be one of the few times where we actually have a video when we put it on YouTube as a sort of filmed thing, because it might be an interesting thing to do. But in this episode, we're going to be taking a film. Well, the original idea was we'll take a really, really bad film and we'll look at the story and see if we can fix the story, what we like and what we don't like. Let's throw some bits out and keep some bits, and then stick that into the Dan Harmon story cycle and see if we can come up with a better plot than they originally had and fix the problems that original film had. Today, however, we're doing a film that actually both of us really liked when we were younger, and now looking back and going, oh, actually, no, yeah, that would have been better if that was the case, and that would have been better if that was the case. So today we're going to take a look at Supergirl. Yes. We'll be back after these titles. Welcome to Murdering a Podcast, two writers' journey to produce a narrative murder mystery. Okay, so Supergirl. I'd said in our group chat, this is a film that when I was a kid, when I was like 6 years old, I think I was 6. I can't remember when it came out. It's 8 years old.
1984. So I would have been 4, and you're how many years older than me?
384. I'd have been 6. I'd have been 6 when it was released.
Yeah, so you were right,
I probably saw it when I was 7 or 8, because that's when it would have been on telly, and I don't think we went to the cinema to see it. Supergirl is one of these films that I used to love, because back then in the mid 80s it was that and Superman. There weren't any other superhero things around apart from the Batman TV series or Flash Gordon or something like that. So
very cheesy. But I mean, well, to be fair, Flash Gordon, it's got what's his name, Brian Blessed in it, and so anything with Brian Blessed in it, it's automatically
alive.
Yes, it's automatically the best thing I've ever seen. You can't hate Brian Blessed, though, can you?
It's horribly, horribly camp, but it's so much fun, and that's why it's fine,
Because Brian Blessed, I mean, who doesn't love Brian Blessed?
Exactly.
Just national treasure.
But Supergirl came at a time, it was a kind of interesting in terms of the what happened with the franchise, because it was the Sawkins who were producing it, but I think at the time they'd moved to Canon or somewhere like that with the promise of an awful lot more money to do stuff with, and so that's when Superman 3 happened, and then Supergirl and Superman 4 were kind of in development at the same time. They put a lot of money into Supergirl, but there were still sort of massive restrictions, and that's probably something that we'll end up talking about. So things like, there's a bit in the film where there's an invisible monster. Well, that was clearly because they didn't have the budget to do everything else. But in terms of all the other effects, actually, it looked an awful lot better than Superman 3 did. And yet there were some really... a lot of it's very good. The acting is really good. There's
for the most part. There are a couple of moments
of scenery moments, sure,
where
within the context of what it is and the time it was made, and you can go back to Lex Luthor in the original Superman film and go, okay, well, there's some chewing of the scenery moments there as well, and it's perfectly fine because, again, context of the film and everything. So I liked the acting in it. I liked the fact that they had some good comic relief, but it wasn't overly pushed. It wasn't just stupidly comic like the Richard Pryor Superman 3 bits. And
I would say like the Batman series as well, which was very, very aimed at the sort of the cheesy, the pow, smack, wham, gee, Batman kind of... that
in and of itself came from a time, because there was the comics code in America stopped comics like Batman, specifically comics like Batman, from being all dark and edgy and, you know, based on gangsters and the guy being a vigilante killing gangsters, essentially. And so where the books that they produced ended up being sillier and sillier and lighter, and the 60s series was based on those comic books. So that's why it was camp, partly because it fitted in with the kind of the era, but mostly because,
I mean, it doesn't mean I didn't love it growing up. I mean, don't get me wrong, I absolutely loved it. So
you know what?
much.
I think Batman is one of the best comedy series of the 60s.
And I think with that one, I mean, whenever I think of the old style Batman and this Batman TV series, I always think of the old Only Fools and Horses episode where you've got Rodney and Del Boy running down the road as Batman and Robin. And it's just, that will always forever stick in my, and you would have never had that scene, that iconic scene.
If you haven't seen it and you want to find it, the episode is called Heroes and Villains, and it's very, brilliant. Very good.
Oh, it's the best episode of best episode ever.
So with this whole backdrop of a company that wants to save a lot of money but is still trying to produce a superhero flick, that are trying to learn some of the lessons from the previous Superman thing that they did. Yeah, they wanted to produce Supergirl, and they got an awful lot of stuff right for the time, for the age. If we were updating it now, probably you'd do a few things differently. But again, that's what we're going to talk about. So Supergirl itself, basic story is a Kryptonian device is accidentally sent to Earth.
Yep.
And Kara Zor-El, who is Supergirl, jumps into an escape pod, essentially, and goes to try and find it, because if she doesn't get it back in time, her city is going to be destroyed.
I think it's the last remaining remnants.
It is yes, one of the last remaining remnants of Krypton. Yeah. She then forgets about that for about half an hour while she goes to school, because that's what you do when you're a kid.
Yeah, yeah.
The device is found by it lands in the picnic of a witch called Selena, who uses it to augment her powers. And the first thing she does is go, "Oh, look, there's a pretty man over there. I'll go and seduce him." Well, no, I'll give him a love drug so that he falls in love with me. This guy who's then in her building then escapes from the building, wanders down the street, and we're meant to believe that the very first woman who he lays his eyes on is Supergirl's alter ego about half an hour later.
Considering the number of people he walks past, it's like...
You can see women in the shot of the thing as she walks past.
And then we completely forget about the reason why she's in the first place at that point.
Then there's this convoluted, very, very, very slow chase with a bulldozer.
With overly dramatic music.
This is the first major action set piece for Supergirl to do something. And she doesn't do the one thing that you would expect Superman to do, go and pick the bloody bulldozer up. Yeah. No, she destroys half the town.
I mean, it does remind me, the extremely slow chase with the bulldozer reminds me of the Austin Powers moment with the that roller thing where he's going, "No!" and then
it is it's camp and cheesy and kind of fun, but there's bits of it that would be changed nowadays.
Very changed. Very.
So he falls in love with Supergirl's alter ego, and then does he get kidnapped? Or
she goes poof, and then he ends up in chains on her bed.
That's
with his top off.
Right.
He has his top off through 90% of the film, which I thought wasn't fair because none of the women had their tops off.
only a lesbian can get away with saying that, really. Oh, that's going in. That's going in. So then, all of a sudden, we remember that if Supergirl doesn't get this thing back to Argo City within 2 days, this is the end of day one. Within 2 days, then the whole city's going to be destroyed. And she finally notices that something's lit up, and so she goes to try and find it.
Yes.
Playing into the hands of Selena, who sends her to the Phantom Zone. Am I getting this
Phantom
mixed
Zone?
up?
Yeah. No. She does go to the Phantom Zone because she has to climb up the wall with all the fireballs that completely miss them and still manage to knock off the guy.
That's right.
Who's with her.
Who's with her?
Yeah, because
So,
he
yes,
literally goes over his head, completely misses him, and he's ah,
He goes
and
to the
falls
Phantom
off.
Zone, and then she meets Lawrence of Arabia.
Oh dear, my brain just went straight to who's having a tea party with Aladdin.
So Peter O'Toole is playing a scientist called Zoltan.
Something like that. Zoltan, not
it was
Zoltan.
lit-
Zoltan is the future box in Big. That's Zoltan
yes.
is the
Yes, you're right.
Zoltar.
Zoltar.
I think it's Zoltar.
You know what? I watched this yesterday and I still can't remember it. That's
Yeah.
it's Zoltar. I've written it in my notes. It's down here. He helps her traverse the Phantom Zone and get out in a scene that we don't really see because they're essentially walking through a wasteland. She then appears, for some reason, they've hung Jimmy Olsen and Lois Lane's sister and Peter Cook, who is
giant metal
balls.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's trying to say something. Above a room, and Supergirl appears in that room. And Selena, in the meantime, has become sort of full on take over the world. She's got stormtroopers. She's got a Rolls Royce that she drives around in, and has created a giant mountain that she lives inside.
Yeah, just magically.
I don't know why every supervillain needs a mountain. That's just why that happens.
It's just everything that a supervillain needs, isn't it? They just need a giant mountain with some random building on the top of it where they can do their evil plan.
So Supergirl comes in there to release the prisoners, and Selena tries to stop a flying woman by making the floor a bit uneven. I've said that at the wrong time because Tash is taking a drink and they can't swallow. I can't put that in the video, you know. Strangely enough, she flies out of that trap.
Oddly, yes. I just nearly choked on my tea. That was mean.
Oh, and I forgot about the bullies. In while she was at school, she's dealt with two bullies. Who, again, she's got a day to find this thing or
it's amazing though, don't you find though it's amazing how she immediately goes to using her superpowers to deal with the bullies, but when she's on the floor that's all unstable, she's on the floor going, what do I do?
Yeah, this is
come on, Queen, you have all this power, just use it.
So Selena the witch has inadvertently, with the help of this MacGuffin, because it is a MacGuffin, it's a little spinny bally MacGuffin thing, has conjured some sort of demon-y thing that we don't really get into, but you know, who cares? And that's what's giving her all of this power. And in order for Supergirl to stop the witch has to just look at the demon thing. That's it. That's all that's got to happen, and then everything's right again. That's the end of the movie.
That's a very good summary of the movie.
I think this took us a little bit longer than the 2 minutes that I'd written to spend on actually telling you what the backstory was. There's good reason behind this. So let's get into this. What do we actually like from the movie? What was stuff? If we were going to, if we're looking at this again to rewrite it, what would we keep? What stuff do we like?
Well, I mean, for me as a young girl, Superwoman, there was always like the heroes were always men. and that you watched on TV. Now, I've always been quite a masculine woman, and I wanted to be the bloody hero, and be rescuing the girl. And I was like, even though I wasn't out as gay yet, I hadn't figured it out. I don't know why. That was a clue, I think. But I wanted to be I didn't want to be rescued. And I was watching it, and Supergirl gave me a woman who was supposed to be powerful and strong and overcoming all of these obstacles. And for me, it was like, oh my God, women can be superheroes too. And it was that, because back then it wasn't really represented as well.
Quite interesting. And you're right, it wasn't very represented as well. But what I thought was quite interesting, she was very powerful and very strong. She was very feminine as well. And so it gives you the duality of that character, which was quite nice.
This is the thing. I mean, there is this kind of stereotype where people assume that if you are feminine, you are weak as a woman, and if you're masculine, there's something wrong with you. So you can't win. So it's like, it is really nice to see like the representation of a beautiful feminine woman kicking the butts of some, like floundering and then kicking the butts of supervillains. This is one of those things
that, however we then approach this, we have to remember that every story is you put your main character in harm's way, you throw every amount of crap at them that you can, and they've got to get out of that some way. So they're not going to succeed all the time. And it would be a boring story if they did, but they will find a path to succeeding, which is them overcoming the obstacles and stuff that you've placed in front of them.
So I paused my microphone so that I can stir my tea and not make a racket. Otherwise, it sounds like a kettlebell.
It's a bit of a racket. It sounds like you've got some sort of gong.
I have. It's
like that bit in The Golden Child where he's doing the things.
Well, the other tea that I was drinking was my pre-cup of tea, because I have to wait for the other one to brew, because that's a loose leaf tea. Right, so this tea, the tea in this cup...
This might take a while.
The tea in this cup, which is my little porcelain Tigger cup, it was just normal tea bag tea, right? Because the tea in my giant kettlebell that I was just stirring, this giant bucket of tea here, is loose leaf tea, and that takes about 5 or 10 minutes to brew, and I'm really impatient when it comes to my tea, so I have a pre-cup of tea and then my actual proper cup of tea. There you go, that's how it works. I'm very, very British.
That's more British than I am, that's far more British than I am.
I'm obsessed with tea, I really am. I actually have a tea corner in my kitchen.
Going back to Supergirl. So that's something we liked. We liked that.
Yeah.
There's that power. We liked that. Yeah. I liked the fact that it was magic that was the antagonist, because if you don't know the comics, then magic is one of the few things that can actually affect Kryptonians. So you see Superman a lot fighting X, Y, or Z villain. He's going to win because he's got all of the powers, and that's one of the major problems that Superman has as a character. He's too powerful in many respects. This
is one of the things I've noticed. Again, it's similar with the Hulk in the Marvel universe, where they kind of have to disable the most powerful character for the majority of the film, and then right at the end, comes to save the day. When you're dealing with, because you have to have such an extremely powerful supervillain in order to go up against those. To create someone that powerful was just
again, talking about kind of power levels and things, for a very long time it was said that Hulk was the most powerful being in the Marvel universe. So you're dealing with people who are kind of right at the top of it. How do managing that is a problem. So you need something that's really, that really does have to go up against. They do have to go up against something that is genuinely dangerous and genuinely a problem for them. Otherwise, then again, there's no drama in it. If there's no conflict, there's no drama. And if they can just get away with whatever it is, then there's no drama.
Well, it would be a very short film.
Yes,
to be fair.
it would. Well,
I am the bad guy. Pew pew out of my eyes. Oh, the bad guy's dead. Bye.
You say that, but I'm sure when we're talking about some of these films, we will end up seeing some films where that absolutely happens, where the protagonist can deal with absolutely everything straight away with no problems whatsoever. They are out there. The other thing I quite liked was Peter Cook and Bianca characters as kind of comic relief. Because I think you do need a bit of that in a film like this, even if it's not quite as, in your face.
Sorry, just going back to when you were saying about the magic and stuff, like I do like the idea with the magic and stuff. And I think we were saying earlier that one of the problems that I had is that she had to be the being a witch was quite badly done, because back then sort of Wiccan communities were seen as devil worshippers and what have you. And you were mentioning things like the Scarlet Witch is done very, very well, because it's not representing the sort of the coven of the Wiccan sort of,
no,
Wiccan
it's not taking something. Very, it's like you were saying actually about the Kiltondale stuff. We're not taking real world things and then imbuing them with whatever thing we want them to have. We're taking something new, and then we're saying, well, this is why it does it. It's because it's our thing. We can do what we want with it, and I think that's a better approach to doing something like this. Actually, you could take something like one of the cults in Lovecraft and sort of substitute that for what we've got in Supergirl and play on that eldritch horror thing, and which in the DC universe links a lot with Raven's character. If you ever watched the Titans series, Raven that's really good, actually. It's worth a watch.
That's going to be going on my list. I've got a new toy to watch my video my things on, so I'm like,
cool. Titans should be available on Netflix, I think.
Awesome. Well, I've just finished Stranger Things, so
we have to have a conversation about that at some point, because my God, that was good.
Oh yes. I just wanted to sort of go with in terms of the Wiccan things and the misrepresentation of it, because they do it in Sabrina the Teenage Witch on that series. Again, a lot of the symbolism they use for the satanic rituals and the Satanism is actually pagan or Wiccan or Druid. Please excuse me if I get get this wrong, because I am an atheist myself, so I don't. Although I know
the main statue they use is the. Is it the Church of Satanists or something?
This is where we need Demelza on here, because she is
because she knows this stuff.
Oh, she knows all. This is her nerd out. This is her nerd out moment, and I love talking to her about this stuff.
But not
that she gets a word in edgeways, but
It is something from a actual recognized, even if you don't believe in it yourself, recognized church. And they are saying, actually, this series is, it's not representative of us. And I did notice there is a moment when Supergirl's gone off the floor and she flies up. Then there's a little same statue. As the camera pulls up, you see the same statue, and you go, okay, that's making those same mistakes there. Yeah, and you don't need to do it. That's the thing.
No, because a lot of pagan and Wiccan religions and or belief systems are actually, they're not satanic, they're not evil, they are essentially worshipping nature, and they worship the gods as nature. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I understand. I've got a lot of friends in the sort of the pagan world, and they're all just lovely people and wouldn't harm a fly. That's the whole point, is they wouldn't harm the flies. They wouldn't even harm a fly, let alone a human being. So I don't like the way they've kind of used the sort of that existed, they've kind of made those implications. There are so many ways they could have done that differently, like you said, with things like eldritch cults, or maybe she could have found the power somewhere else and then created a cult out of it rather than a coven.
Demons exist in the DC. This is kind of the point I was getting onto. The character Rachel Roth, or Raven, has a human mother and a demon father, and a lot of that character is about that duality, and is about her having to overcome the fact that she doesn't want to to become the demon, so those already exist in the universe. They could have taken something like that and played on it rather than going and Selena, to be fair, is a completely new character. It's not in any of the comics, and maybe that was a good thing for the time, but we've expanded that universe so much now. There's so much more you could do with it. So what about other things that we didn't like? Because that's what we're kind of getting onto now, isn't it?
I mean, there wasn't. I mean, like I say, those were the main two things. It was that sort of that concept, or the sort of the harmful view of motivations behind women, which is that all we want is boys. I can assure you, we don't. And this one doesn't. And it's. That's not on our forefront of our mind, and it plays very, very much into that sort of patriarchal. I'm a huge feminist, if you haven't figured out, and that damaging construct of society where we're saying, well, all a woman wants is to swoon, and she will forget about everything else, which is what we've just been talking about. She has this really essential mission, like you said. She's got 2 days to find this item that would kill, and if she doesn't, everyone she knows dies, and she gets distracted by a boy, and the film becomes about a boy, and he's not even that. Well, I'm not exactly objective on this, but girls, come on, straight girls, tell me, is he really that attractive? Because I don't think he is.
I've no idea.
You don't. I'm sure you're about as clueless as me when it comes to attractive men. I mean,
pretty much.
Like, if I see an attractive man, I just want to hug him. I see Jason Momoa and I go, oh, I bet he gives good hugs. I'm not thinking about, like, seriously. Again, this should have been a clue a long time ago.
So I've got it's not that long, but I've got a laundry list of things that I think I'd like to change that would make things better. Zoltar and the MacGuffin, I don't think you need it.
No.
You could get rid of the first 11 minutes of that film. You don't need the Argo City stuff, because actually in the comics, Argo City is destroyed, and that's why Kara comes to Earth in the first place. So you could already do that bit without having to, and again, you lose a lot of mess with the whole thing, which is the MacGuffin, which is the Zoltar bit, which is the seeing her in home. There's a lot of that stuff that is. It doesn't help the plot, and I'm saying that doesn't help the plot because you've got this soggy middle bit where she enrolls in a school which is not forwarding her mission at all, and it's ignoring the ticking clock that you've set up at the beginning of the thing with the city anyway. So what's the point in it?
I've got to agree. Like, the setup, I was watching it, I was thinking, well, there's just something that's not hitting right with this setup. And I think, the whole point is, like you said, if there was she was sent to Earth because her planet was destroyed. And she comes here, and then there's we needed a stronger plot. We needed a stronger motivation for her and what have you. But yeah, I found it quite, you're setting up and you go, oh, it's pretty. And then, but again, she kind of gets almost infantilized at that point, where she's sitting and playing with this magic wand on the floor like a child, and then sends this giant bug thing through the very paper thin walls of this magnificent city out into the atmosphere that then sucks all of the fucking air out, and they have to quickly repair it with the magic paper thin walls. I mean, that's a problem in and of itself.
Yeah. And the whole sort of what was it, geophysics or something that they're talking,
six-dimensional geophysics or something like that.
It's
and I'm like,
it's something that you might put in a sci-fi film, and if you put it in a sci-fi film, most sci-fi fans will go, yeah, that's bollocks. That's
like, what is it? Is it 2021 where he goes, the neutrons are mutating? And you're like, it doesn't fucking happen, dude. It's not the thing. I think Dara O'Brien does a beautiful stand-up about the neutrons mutating because he used to be a physicist. So it's like, and you're like, yeah, that just doesn't.
You know a little bit.
No, is it the neutrons or the photons that are mutating? I can't remember.
It doesn't matter.
But one of them is mutating, and then the whole of the Earth is destroyed. It's like, no, that's not. No, Let's just pretend that didn't happen.
That's not how those
Otherwise,
things
it's a great film. We redo that film next because that was can we please? Because that was terrible.
It's one of those lines that writers put in because it sounds good, but if you know anything about it, then it's a bit like the gel man media. Do you know what the gel man media effect is?
No, I don't.
Okay, so Michael Crichton was at a dinner at some point with the physicist, I think he is, Murray Gell-Mann. And Crichton reported that this is something that Murray Gell-Mann had said. It's a Nobel Prize winning physicist, as far as I know. Gell-Mann, not Michael Crichton. He wrote Jurassic Park. So he said that if you know something about a subject, you can read an article in a magazine or in a newspaper or see something on a news report on TV about that subject, and you will know that it is nonsense, that they've got so much wrong about the subject that as to be completely pointless as an article. But you will turn the page and you will read the next article, which is about something completely different that you don't know about, and you will believe every single word of it.
Yes.
It's called the Gell-Mann media effect.
Unless you are Unless you're a massive nerd or you're autistic and you're like me.
And you go and sort of figure out everything.
You see
about
anything and you go, is that true? I now have to obsessively research that for months. Thanks. Which is my thing.
Films do the same thing. Films will lay out some sort of psychobabble about something and you believe it because it's in a film and you've suspended your disbelief for the film. But if you know anything about it, those are the sorts of things that really stick in your head and go, but that's so wrong.
It's when they get the colour of the blood wrong, right? So for me, or wound, because when we set up this murder scenes when we were doing before the pandemic and we were able to do the live shows, we will eventually do live shows again when we've got money. But pandemic crippled us, but we're trying to sort of get back up, but. We do not give up. But yeah, so when we were doing those live shows and stuff, I would be responsible for setting up a lot of the crime scenes. So one of the things I would do, and I go into like ridiculous amounts of detail. I am an accuracy pedant. So if you don't know what that means, it's not. I don't have to be right. I just have to be accurate.
If you don't know what it means, you don't have to know what it means because Tash will explain it to you.
Yeah, I will in great detail. That's what it is. What she means. Never ask me about special interest or hyperfixation ever, because you will get a barrage of information. But anyway, so where was I? So I was talking about so the blood thing. So whenever I see any kind of sort of special effects on TV, if the blood colour's wrong, I'm like, that's too bright, that's too dull, that's wrong. And unfortunately, when you use real blood, and this is a fun fact, if you use real blood on TV on cameras, because of the way it picks up the light,
right.
No, it looks fake. Because there's a couple of films where I've seen it where they've actually used like real animal blood, and you're just like, no, that's fake. Or photos of real crime scenes, and you're like, is that real? I mean, there was a scene going back to Supergirl where she's squeezing a rock. And then she lets go, and she's just got this pool of blood on her hand. There's no cut. There's nothing there. It's just blood. Just blood. Like, you're like, that's just lazy.
Which shouldn't have happened anyway, but that's...
No, because she's bloody Supergirl. But is it Supergirl who did that? No, it is Supergirl who does that, doesn't it?
It is Supergirl who does that, yeah.
Who squeezes the rock. I'm not misremembering.
No,
and you're like, considering somebody did a hockey puck at her and it exploded on her back, and then she squeezes a rock and gets blood out of it. I mean, it's like getting blood out of a stone. She literally got blood out of a stone because she... doesn't bleed. And there was another thing where they were throwing shit at her and she was sitting there and scared of it, and you're like, dude, your skin is like steel.
The reason that it doesn't feel right is because it's not set up to begin with. We might come onto this a little bit later because I've got a few ideas about that. So those are things that we're not like. I don't like the fact that she just has her powers.
Yeah.
She explodes from the water and then can do everything. I would have loved it if part of that first part of the film was just discovering I can do this.
Yeah,
because she couldn't do it back where she lived, and now she can.
And the magical way she managed to get she went in there in a white dress and then came out dressed as Supergirl. Like, I mean,
Yes,
mean,
magic
Superman had
clothes
the
generating
outfit.
abilities is not.
Yeah, it's not one of the things they do. But there's a couple of times where she manages to do that.
Yeah.
In the film, she sees somebody and then manages to magically change the colour of her hair, change all of her clothes. I'm like, that's not one of her powers.
And it's not what. It's not the way the character works in the comics. It's clearly an invention for the thing.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't mind actually, much like Man of Steel, if you didn't see the Superman stuff or the Supergirl costume and everything for a good chunk of that. Even it might not even be in the whole thing. The whole thing could be the journey to becoming Supergirl.
That I absolutely agree with, because again, instead of that squishy bit where she's going into the school and enrolling and forgetting about her time, 2 days she's got before her entire, civilization is destroyed. It could have been a lot more fun, and I think a lot more interesting to see the clumsiness of I would have liked to have seen her do the great, like an impression of the American's Greatest Hero. If you've ever not seen that series, you have to watch it, where she comes out and goes, flails, and then goes straight into a tree.
I love that series. It was brilliant.
It's so good, isn't it?
So much fun.
It's always the same thing of him flying, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, the same thing. Yeah.
It's so good. But anyway, so I'm so glad I'm not alone in having seen that. But she... I would love to have seen something
Believe
like that.
It or not, I'm walking on air. Never thought I would be so free. Yeah, love that. Brilliant series.
Such a good show. If you haven't seen it, honestly, find it, watch it, view it. It's so good. You will your stomach will hurt. You'll be laughing that much.
Yes.
But Ralph is brilliant. I love Ralph.
So
it's such a good name for superhero as well, Ralph. I mean,
yes. I totally agree with the change of uniform thing. I have got that written down, actually, as one of those things.
I had to rewind it 3 times to go, how the fuck did you get into that bitch? But she doesn't have to compromise at all throughout the film. And that, I think, if you could see her, because the super characters, that super family, clearly have a very strong moral streak running through them. That's part of the characters. But to put somebody like that in a situation where the only option they've got is to take something, that's great character development and growth. And then to see that pay off perhaps at the end, where they return it, or they return it plus something else, would be nice. But we don't get any of that. We don't get any character growth at all. Now, we saw a cut of this film that was 2 hours and 3 minutes long. Oh, I saw it. I saw whatever was on Prime, because I didn't have anywhere to download
okay, all right.
I just went on with Prime. So.
I don't know what's on Prime. The one that I've got, which was for the international release, is 2 hours odd long. There's a director's cut, which is 2 hours and 18 minutes long, which has a little bit more character growth, but not really enough to kind of save it. And it doesn't really have those moments in it still that kind of save the problem. So yes, change of uniform thing. The school, I get why they've done it. They need to meet Lisa, Laura, Lana, Looney, something Lane.
What's her name? Lane's sister. Lois Lane's sister.
Yeah. They need to meet her because she's
or Lucy Lane.
It might be Lucy.
Might be Lucy Lane.
It's another LL.
They keep. This is one of the rules of writing: is don't have all the characters with the same bloody names. I couldn't remember.
Yeah, they've always done that sort of alliterative thing in.
Yeah, but you've got 2 characters because with LL, because it's Lucy Lane, and then Kara takes on a name that's LL, and they're both.
But they shouldn't have done that. Kara in the comics is Kara Danvers, so they should have just kept that going.
They could have just kept Kara Danvers. There was no need to do that. I mean, there was that little funny bit where the teacher gets the names wrong and gets it backwards, but that was the only. If that's the only reason why they did it, it's kind
not
of a
worth it.
Joke.
That setup isn't worth it. The whole thing. So that the truck chase, I think we need a better act. We need a better set piece that is more fun and yeah.
Well, you were saying earlier that it's when you've got this slow motion, whatever it was, clappy giant metal crocodile thing. What's it called?
Bulldozer.
Forklift. Is it?
It's not a forklift. It's a
What is it? It's the
bulldozer.
giant thing with the. I call it giant metal crocodile thing, but yeah, that's what I'm calling it
Yeah.
from now on.
It's like a
So,
bulldozer.
yeah, the
But
big
I know
truck,
what you mean. But it's a big truck with a the thing on the
snappy
front.
thing, and he's the guys after having escaped from the baddie, having been dosed with love potion, is kind of doing this staggering slow motion chase.
The guy who doesn't know he's escaped from the baddie.
Oh, yeah.
He's just been drugged and is now wandering the streets.
I mean, this is date rape. I mean, I'm not being funny, but
It really is.
It is, and it's. This is where I kind of go, well, I'm not feeling very comfortable with that because, you know, you're essentially, she's date raped this guy, or she's trying to date rape this guy. She's drugged this man to force him to fall in love with her. I mean, that is an evil thing to do anyway. So, but it just, it doesn't sit right with me. He's been drugged and he's wandering the streets, and that I don't like that. That made me feel very, very uncomfortable.
Again, I think get rid of him. He's not necessary.
Oh, he was very not necessary. He was topless through 90% of that film, as we have said. But yeah, I mean, when we go with that thing, and you said about what would Superman have done? He would have just flown in, lifted it up, and you quite rightly pointed out, what do they get Kara to do? Fucking destroy the whole town. And you're like, that's not, no, that's wrong.
Again, I think this is one of the problems when you have a character that has so many powers and is so powerful that the little things seem almost, pointless.
Well, she also stands like gormlessly staring at it for quite a while whilst it just terrorizes everybody, and then goes, oh, I might as well go and get something, and then rushes on, goes, oh, sorry, I'm in a rush. You're like, yeah, but you weren't in a rush 10 minutes ago, kid. Whilst you were just watching that bulldozer destroy things and kill people. I mean, you know, you would just sit there gormlessly go,
there's a moment in there.
That's not a representation of a female superhero that I want to see.
There's a moment in there where he's walking down the street and they're with Jimmy Olsen, who's come to visit Lane, whatever her name Lane is.
Lucy Lane. Larry Lane. Laurie Lane. Lou or something Lane. Miss Lane.
Yes, Miss Lane. Which sounds like the plot. No. And Jimmy Olsen says to Supergirl, oh, don't go up to him. He might have a knife or a gun or something. Now, if I was a superhero, that might be the time where I think I'd better do something about that then, because other people could be in danger.
Yes.
Not Supergirl. That seemed like such a weird time to have that kind of, but I don't know what's going on, I'm going to stand back and watch stuff.
Because I think that something like a crisis, when she first lands, I think the crisis needed to come earlier, where she lands on Earth, or she gets to Earth, she's not sure of her powers, she's still trying to figure them out, and then a crisis happens, and then she's got to figure out how to use these new abilities in order to save somebody who is in imminent danger, rather than just standing there gormlessly, rushing off to the toilet, getting a quick change, and then stopping it. It was just such a letdown. I think they could have spent.
I know what you mean. Exactly what you mean.
I think it would have been a much more effective and a much more engaging storyline had they put that catastrophe earlier and had her having to use that as a plot device to get her to figure out her powers while she's working towards the ultimate goal, whatever that ultimate goal would be in in the rewrite.
Totally agree. We sort of defined what the film was, and we talked about what we liked about it. We talked about what we didn't like about it. And so now we have to start the process of trying to rewrite it for a more modern age, where we actually try and figure out what we would want to get from a film like Supergirl nowadays. So let's start with our main character.
I haven't seen the new series of Supergirl. I saw a couple of the episodes.
Yeah.
I saw up to the point where they were looking to introduce the Martian Manhunter, and then I no longer had access to it, so I didn't. So I was like, I don't have a TV license, so I watch Netflix and Prime and Disney, because I don't bother with a TV license. So I don't watch TV enough. Terrestrial TV, I watch everything on streaming channels or on demand. So. I don't need one, but Yeah, I lost access to it when I sort of moved into this place when I didn't have a TV license or anything, and I didn't have Sky or anything. I can buy it off Prime.
You could get a Now TV. Is it on Now TV still? I know sometimes they get rid of it, but like £5 or £6 for an Now TV subscription, you can watch the whole thing. I think.
Oh, I might get that for a couple of months, because I did that with the Brit TV BritBox thing, where I watched it because I wanted to watch Spitting Image, and because I remember what it was like in the 80s, and it was savage,
brilliant in the 80s. It wasn't as good now.
No, it wasn't. It was really tame. I was like, where's the savagery? It's not. It's nowhere near as spicy as it was. It was always like proper. I like the new term spicy to describe someone being savage now, right? Because somebody said spicy, like somebody said, "Oh, you're spicy, Tash." And I was like, I like this. I think I was savagely going at a misogynist who'd made a comment that women shouldn't be allowed Instagram when they have a boyfriend, because his girlfriends preferred the Instagram likes over sex, and I pointed out that that's probably because he was shit in bed. And very insecure. And I got called Spicy Tash, and I was like, I like this. I like being called the spice. So yeah, savage. That's what if you're not in the new kit, you're not up with the lingo.
There you go. Something is.
I still say fab and lush.
I had something spicy this week. We've just had a Taco Bell open in Gloucester, and it's the first time I've ever had it. But I love Mexican food. And it's like now there's Mexican food delivered to your door, and it was nice and fresh. I was expecting it to be like fast food kind of lettuce and things like that, but it wasn't. It was really nice, fresh stuff. So yeah, that was a good experience. But completely unrelated to what we're meant to be talking about.
I'm not. The only thing I like is a chili con carne, and it's only if I make it myself, because I've managed to get it spicy without being too hot.
Right.
So I've got a particular thing that I do. So it's got loads of garlic, loads of ginger, and you get the spice, but you don't get the hot. It doesn't burn your face off. You get a very quick hot kick.
Yeah.
If you put a little bit of chili and a little bit of cumin in it, the combination of those, when you eat it, you get that very quick hot kick or that spice kick, but then you don't have your mouth on fire by the time you finish your dinner.
Which is good. I mean, for me, tacos, burritos, anything that ends in O's, basically. SpaghettiOs, anyway, right. Our main character, Supergirl. Who is she? Who is our main character? What's the thing that we're saying? Now, I had a thought about this, actually.
Oh, did it hurt?
Oh, yes. But
I thought I've got
smoke
coming out your
got
ears.
Some cream for it, and it'll be fine in the morning.
I got tablets for my.
So I had a thought, which was, it would be interesting if she comes to Earth and she doesn't know who she is.
Yeah,
and then the theme, and I've got written down here, and we should be talking about the theme at some point. The theme of the story could then be, who am I? Who is Kara as an individual?
Well, it's a journey of self-discovery then as well.
Well, it is, but it also fits in with. So one of the things that actually comes out in the Supergirl movie that I think gets a bit missed out is it actually is a kind of a rite of passage movie.
Yeah,
but that would play into the idea of it being a rite of passage movie as well. So I think in the last episode we said, you could cut out that first 10 minutes.
Yes.
So if we're going to do that in the first place, we can assume that Argo City has been destroyed like it was in the comic book by meteors. It was, if I'm remembering it rightly, I think that slowly the ground in Argo City turned into kryptonite and killed everybody.
Yeah.
And so Kara was sent off to try and find the one other person they knew had escaped from Krypton.
So I think that would be a better premise to start it. It would open it with a nice sort of dramatic thing of people dying. Nice dramatic thing of people dying. It would give you that drama.
Do we need to actually start there? Could you actually start with this thing falling to Earth?
Yeah, that's by the way, I'm doing the sound effect with the hand movement.
Yes, this is the sound effect of coffee brewing.
No, that was the thing going through the atmosphere. Coffee brewing.
Which sounds an awful lot like Nescafe.
It does, doesn't it?
So yes, the capsule falls to Earth, and maybe we see it. Maybe we see Metropolis. Maybe that's our opening image. Is the Daily Planet, and then this thing flies over the Daily Planet.
Well, you know what I think? It could be as she comes in through the because I've got it in my head as how I would do. The image that I've got in my head would be opening as she's coming in through the atmosphere with the flames going back,
right,
and then a few little flashbacks like that thing of the flashbacks of people dying in her city, but you don't really get to see the full picture, just the occasional image, and then flashing between, and then you go, and then it pans to the Daily Planet, and as you say, it goes straight over the top, and then you can have a few more little flashbacks coming in, and then boom into the ground.
You see, that might be a nice anchoring point if maybe we don't know what happens to Argo City, but as we see more of Kara,
you see more of the
you
flashbacks,
see more of these flashbacks, and that's what's happened. So that's sort of relating back to it.
She would have PTSD. I'm sorry, she would.
Sure,
you just see your whole fucking planet die, and then your city, the one of the few surviving areas, people just dying.
Yeah.
That would give you some kind of PTSD. So that's a really beautiful angle as well. You can then address sort of mental health and how that would have affected her, and how that sort of, because trauma can cause traumatic amnesia. So she may have forgotten everything that happened, but just have these images of flashes of things that you discover as you go through. And I think that would be a beautiful idea.
So I think what we're talking about that character, what she wants in terms of dramatically what she wants. When we start off, she wants to find Cal. She wants to find Superman. Now, in the original Supergirl, they had quite a nice, fairly innocuous thing, which there was a report on the television that said that Superman had gone off planet.
Yeah.
So that would be kind of nice to keep, so that he's not actually around, but she lands to Earth and is completely alone.
Yeah.
And I just got this idea of, maybe like you said, the first thing that you see is this capsule coming in over the world, and there's fire and flames and everything. And then the Daily Planet logo, and it shoots over the Daily Planet logo. Maybe it just clips the Daily Planet logo and starts to knock it off a little bit. And maybe Chekhov's gun, that could come back a little bit later on, and that could be an action piece where she actually saves people from a falling Daily Planet logo.
Yeah. That was ironically loosened by her spaceship.
Yes. And then it lands. And, I would like...
Because that could be where she realizes who she is and how the powers that she's got is in that moment where that kind of just...
When people are in danger and she suddenly goes into to save. But I think you could do that. You could do that in, as we get into the first sort of 10, 15 minutes of the film, you could actually have that first action piece, which is, what, about, I want to say about an hour into the other film before you get a first big set piece like that.
Yeah. Because like you say, the first, so you've got that bit in the original film where they're just being all harmonized and happy, up in their nice little world of pretty sparkly things. I like sparkly things, and then paper thin walls, which is stupid. And then she steals the spacecraft. She's a shit driver, of course, and then she drives. But
the beginning, I did time it. The beginning of that film, by the time that she launches in the spacecraft, it's 11 whole minutes. In a TV show, that's Act 1.
Yeah, I mean, that would be... You could do a good, a minute of this spaceship coming down, and that first maybe 10, 15 minutes of her... if you're talking a feature length, you're talking at least 2 hours, maybe 2.5.
Yeah.
So you would be able to have that, really dramatic entrance. You'd be able to have that time, take that time of her discovering who she is. She doesn't know why, but she needs to get to the Daily Planet. Because something is driving her that way, or she needs to do something, but she doesn't know why. She has this instinct. or something. Do you know what I mean?
How about this? Because we're talking about journey of discovery and everything, and we're talking about essentially an alien landing on Earth. What if she can't speak English? Just at the beginning.
But everyone's got an American accent, including aliens.
No, I mean she. Okay, so we've got opening shot is something coming to Earth. What is it? Who is it? It's still asking that same question. Who is this person?
That's what she finds is a babelfish.
No, well, she crashes to Earth. I think possibly somewhere in the city, maybe in the slums.
Yeah.
And we see the capsule as she's pulling herself out of it. And maybe a homeless person who comes up to it and then asks that central question, who are you?
Yeah, and she's...
And she tries to answer, but she's answering in a language that we don't understand. So at some point... Okay, so at this point, we're kind of in a chase situation. Big explosion has happened in the middle of the city. People are going to be running after her. She doesn't know why, so she'll have to run away from that.
Yeah.
So
you could have her not saying anything at the beginning, because I would say I'd disagree on the different language, but you could have her when someone says, who are you? It could be that blank look, and then all these sirens and everything's coming at her, and it's that fear, and then she just runs away, and then you've got a news thing saying, look, searching for this person, this girl who was seen at the middle of it,
vicinity,
yeah, and who ran away from the city. Witnesses say that she was the cause of this or whatever.
I also think no costume for the first bit, so normal clothes for the first, or what would be Kryptonian clothes, whatever that ends up looking like.
Because I think you could have the costume in the pod, but if the pod gets taken with everything that she needs to be able to translate, so a translator in there, her costume, her everything that she actually needs is in that pod. So the first thing she has to do is find her pod and get the shit she needs to be able to function on this planet.
Yeah.
I think that would be we could go back to that. So we don't necessarily hear her language, but we know she doesn't understand English. We know that she needs this, essentially the equivalent of a babelfish. I'm using babelfish because
the reason I thought we could hear her speaking so that we understand that she doesn't know what's going on, that she can't communicate with people. So, if the police run her down and say, stop, she doesn't know what they're talking about. She
and of course
just
they would assume that she
acting
did.
Towards her. They'd assume that she did. But then instead of having to find the pod, that she realizes that she can learn the language. Maybe she ends up in a bookshop or a library or something, and then can, because Kryptonian powers. This has happened before with Clark. I think he learned other languages very quickly by reading them.
Something, just going to rewind where she's being chased. I mean, the idea, I quite like the idea of them shooting at her and the bullets ricocheting and killing a police officer, and then thinking that
she's got a gun or something.
And then then she becomes a wanted person. Then I think she needs to get back, have to get her pod for something. I think something needs to be in there that's essential to her mission. So that's the first part, and that's her discovery of who she is and her powers. Like you say, she has to learn to communicate. So she goes to find she finds books in a library and she starts learning, and
that idea of a chase. And again, we're still in montage. We're still in Act 1. We don't have to go beyond that, beyond the first sort of 20 minutes of a film to be able to do this. At that point, you could see her trying to run away from someone and running faster than they could, but she doesn't realize she's doing it, or maybe she nearly falls off something and then is flying. And again, maybe doesn't quite realize what's going on, but that sort of slower discovery of, oh God, this is happening now. And like you were saying about the American hero thing, where she doesn't know how to fly, so it's more like a kind of an uncouth kind of jump and hover until she kind of figures out how to do it properly. And maybe the moment that she does do it properly is when that ball falls from the top of the Daily Planet, and she goes, "This isn't right," and jumps for it, and
and that's the epiphany moment, and that's the That's the moment she realizes who she is,
and that is possibly the moment that the audience realizes. That the people of the city realize who she is. When suddenly you've got somebody who is sort of flying up like Superman would and saving people.
She's this new now. Instead of being this aggressor, she's now this strange hero.
Savior. Yeah.
This strange savior, and you can see you can look at how the that gives you an opportunity to really look at how the media portray people and how changeable they can be, from going from you're the worst person in the world to the best person back to the worst person.
Yes,
because they did that beautifully in Spider-Man. They managed to get that perfectly with this guy who's out to get Spider-Man, and bring him down. And I think you've got someone like that in the Daily Planet as well, who's trying to disparage Superman. So you could have that sort of dichotomy with the way that the newspapers are reporting as well, which would bring a little added extra level to the social side of how people would react to a new superhero.
Yes, especially when you could have those little conversations that happen in moments as something else is playing out. You could hear somebody in the background saying perhaps, and Superman isn't around to help or something like that. So that you've got this constant reminder that there is no one that's going to come along and save them. That this is.
Well, you could have had something that's happened to Superman. You could start not just that he's left the planet, but something's happened to him that means he is incapacitated completely.
I mean, you could set it after Death of Superman, but there's so many other superheroes around at the time that it just
not necessarily a death, but maybe he's been trapped in the Phantom Zone, or he's been trapped somewhere, or he's, do you know what I mean? It's that kind of so it's not that he's dead, it's that he has gone missing and nobody knows where he is. Actually that might work very well. That could work very well. Okay, that's our protagonist, and again I still like the idea that she's not Supergirl until the end of the movie. The story that we're telling is her journey to realizing not only that she is somebody with great powers, but that she has a responsibility to the world in a way that she wouldn't have done on her own planet and things like that. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's our protagonist. What about our antagonist? Like I said before, I still like the idea of a, maybe not a witch, but a magic user of some description.
I think that we could have somebody who potentially stumbles across some kind of alien substance, or
it doesn't have to be alien. That's the great thing about the DC universe.
Not necessarily an alien substance. Well, not when I say alien, I don't mean from a different planet, but a substance or an object that imbibes them or imbues them with powers. So essentially you could have like a low level, an evil corrupt CEO, because we always love evil corrupt CEOs, as an evil corrupt billionaire, don't say Jeff Bezos,
I almost think it would be better if it was something that they'd been working towards to begin with, though.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of it being like a cult of some description.
A cult would be always a good idea.
Because you could keep that kind of Peter Cook character, that kind of, he's the head of the cult. And maybe something goes wrong. And instead of him being imbued with all of this power, one of his followers is instead.
And he gets really peed off with it.
Yes.
Yeah. I like the idea of it. If you've got one of the things I liked about it is you've got the female superhero and the female villain, and that was quite a nice thing to be evenly matched. I mean, I don't think that's necessary, but I did quite like that, because there are a lot of things that where
you don't see it as often, do you? You don't get to see female supervillains as often anyway. So
and I like a good female supervillain and a good, I mean, I look at Doctor Who with Missy. I mean, I love that woman. I just a slight crush. But she is absolutely brilliant.
Very well done.
She's
very well
handled. Best master that there's been in my up until that. I haven't seen Doctor Who for a while, so since her, but as I've mentioned, I don't have a TV license. So, but you know, she was one of my favorite villains. But yeah, I think no, she has to play the villain in our version, like just because it's her.
No, but the problem is she's in Sabrina, and it's I kind of feeling it's a similar character, you know.
Yeah. Okay, then maybe, but yeah, I like the idea
There's
of
somebody like that. That's what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've got this useless cult leader. Maybe you've got some of the cult members that are trying to usurp him. Maybe his wife, who's really actually the mastermind behind it. And
that'd be an interesting kind of plot. That there's a cult leader and there is a coup in the cult. The coup happens at the moment of the ritual, and then the demonic thing that was being summoned gets released into an unsuspecting acolyte. Yeah. And suddenly they take over the cult.
And then they have the power, they have all this magic.
Yeah.
And this is where we start to see Supergirl come into her, and that's where and let's just scrap the need for having a love interest. Well,
I don't think you need it at all.
The random airhead man, because again, I don't like the idea that this supposedly attractive man is just portrayed as this freaking airhead, because it's like, come on, you know, that's not how it works. Again, I don't like that sort of premise.
Sure.
You know, it should never be. Again, we need to be moving away from things where, oh, well, if you're a handsome man or a beautiful woman, then you must be stupid. There's got to be something wrong with you.
Yeah.
I know far too many gorgeous people who I want to be stupid, and they're not. They're smart, beautiful, wonderful human beings, and they're just freaking nice, and you try, no matter how hard you try to find something wrong with them, then there's nothing wrong with them, and you're like, I hate you for that. Because I can't hate you because you're lovely. And then I don't hate them, but it's that thing of, but yeah, you want that sort of I want to get rid of that character completely, that sort of that the antagonist's motivation being to get this cute guy to fall in love with it, because women are deeper than that, you know. We have other things that we you know, that motivate us. Like for me, it's tea and food.
So what would be a good what would be a good want for our antagonist once they've got these powers? What's the thing that they're trying to achieve?
$1 million.
And how does that does that and Supergirl get connected?
I would say some kind of global destruction, or you know, because power corrupts, so you could have that concept of power corrupting, and this person then trying to build an army, so they maybe have the power to turn people into zombified versions of themselves. So but they can be turned backwards. So again, you've got that moral dilemma. Supergirl cannot harm the army because they are under this person's control.
Right.
So she's harming innocent people by hurting the army. So you've got this I love the word dichotomy, but you've got this moral dilemma
sure.
where she's thinking, well, if I hurt them, they're innocents. They don't know what's happening. Because you were saying that in the previous one, having to have that moral dilemma, take something and then have to give it back. But with this, I think it would be a really high stakes moral dilemma. So she cannot defend herself against this army in a way that would be effective or defend it. You know, so she's got her hands tied behind her back, which reduces her capabilities because she cannot harm these innocent people who this you know, creature is using to take over the world. And they essentially use it like a puppet master thing. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. We could do with a stakes character. We could do with okay. Here's an idea.
Vampires? No, wrong stakes.
No.
Medium rare? No, still the wrong stakes.
Supergirl is on the run. We see some set pieces, which are her running away from authority.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, she gets cornered purely by chance. She makes the wrong move. She turns down the wrong street. Yeah. And suddenly there's a cop there right in her face. And he says, stop. And there is a moment between them where she realizes in him that he's not there to hurt her.
Yeah.
And so he becomes that stakes character. He becomes almost a foil for the moral story. So she has to learn through his reaction to what she does, who she is, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
But this could be after the point where she can suddenly speak English, or maybe. Oh, that would be interesting.
Because I think, again, you could have that on both sides, because he could then, there could be a point where that police officer, and I'm saying he could, but could realise that Supergirl's not actually trying to harm them, and she realises that he's not trying to harm them, that they're both just too very scared.
I mean, if they are suddenly face to face, so close that, you know, they could almost touch noses with one another, so they're that close to one another. He thinks that she's going to kill him. She thinks that he's going to kill her, and suddenly he recognizes in her that she is as scared as he is, and vice versa.
Because that, again, with her not being able to speak, again, I think that's when you could realise that she doesn't speak the language.
But
and
this is the moment.
Bit.
Well, this is the moment where you could slowly, and again, Kryptonian learning has been one of those things. Very fast, yeah. She could have fallen into the library at that point and gone through lots of books, but doesn't quite understand them yet. And then suddenly she hears him speaking, and she starts to parrot some of the things that he's saying. And again, you get this slower growth of suddenly being able to do stuff. Idea.
Oh, right. So, just taken from what you said, so they come face to face. So she's got very parrot English, very pigeon English, sorry. Mm-hmm. And it's very, very basic. Like the Fifth Element with Lilu,
sure.
Chicken Good. Yeah.
But we want to solve that by mid Act 2 or something like that, you know.
Yeah. So at this point, they're face to face. She doesn't speak very good English, but she can get enough across to say that she's scared. She's not the bad guy. He realizes he's a really empathetic cop. So they both realize they're both, that the other person's scared. The cop helps her to hide her, takes it, and that's when she learns the English. And then you can have that sort of private person. So he's helping her understand. Maybe the cop's injured and she saves him. That's how he knows. So maybe he gets shot by accident by a ricocheted bullet. She scoops him up, saves him, something along those lines, or he protects her.
That actually might be interesting. That other cops come along and they're shouting, and one of them fires.
Yeah,
and she thinks they're still danger, but this one is all right.
Yeah,
and then. Yes, grabs him up and jumps away with him. And again, she doesn't necessarily know that that's how her powers work. She's just doing what comes instinctually, you know.
Yeah, she's realised that she can jump very high at this point. She doesn't know it's flying.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the cop needs to get injured, and she takes the empathy. She takes that. Goes, I will save you because that is what I want to do. I'm not here as bad. And that's when the cop realizes, actually, you are not a baddie, you are a goodie. And she, very basic language, but yeah, she then, when, in that moment, it's like Tucker and Dale when they with all the kids killing themselves at them. Yeah. And they rescue the young girl from the lake. All these kids think that they've kidnapped this girl, and she's sitting playing chess and drinking tea with them because they're actually really nice guys and they've done nothing wrong, and it's this miscommunication thing. And I like the idea of using that. So you could have that little time with them in, say, like in a hideout somewhere, and that's where she really puts the pieces together in terms of the communication, the language. And he teaches it, and then you've got that beautiful bonding moment, and then you've got him as that high stakes, because now the cop is in danger. Now she's, everyone's after her thinking she's just kidnapped a cop, when actually she's just saved his life.
Yeah.
So he's now going to try and protect her, which could put him into, and you've got all of this. Does that?
You could have a moment there. There's a moment in the original Supergirl where they're in whatever she's called, Lane's dormitory.
Yeah.
And I keep referring to her as Kara because that's what the name is.
Call her Kara.
So Kara looks at the wall and there's a picture of Superman.
Yeah.
We could do something similar here. So she pulls the cop away to what she thinks is safety. They end up being crashing through the wall of a newsagent's or something.
Yeah.
And then there is a conversation, and her language gets slowly better, and and she can finally communicate, I'm here to find my cousin. And he says, well, who's your cousin? And she looks up at the shelf and points, and we see that she's pointing at a picture of Superman. We've gone way outside of the Dan Harmon story circle because we didn't start in a comfort zone, and we haven't sort of set up desires and stuff apart from Kara needs to find Cal. But we need to very quickly turn that on its head because he's off world, and everybody knows that he's off world. So,
or he's missing somehow, and people don't know where he is.
Yeah. So I think we're a little bit down the way of the Save the Cat beat sheet. If you wanted to kind of put this into something.
Well, this goes back to when we were talking about all the different structures of stories that you can have.
Oh yeah. Look, just use what works for you at the time, and then as long as. I've always thought that it's better to put structure in afterwards, so that you write the thing that you need to write, and then you go and have a look at the structure and go, okay, how have I diverged from this? And it's going to be something that is going to be a problem but then it's two different ways of looking at it, which we've talked about before. Anyway,
I have different structures depending on what I'm writing. So,
So Kara has pulled this police officer, our Stakes character,
He's pulled him, away. She pulled him away.
She has told him that she's there to try and find Superman.
Her cousin Superman, yeah.
And then he has to explain to him he's not here.
We don't know where he is.
We don't know where he is. Yeah. And so her want at that point her desire at that point needs to be to try and find him.
Yeah.
But her need should be something else at this point.
Yeah,
which is, I suppose, she needs to become Supergirl. She needs to become independent of Clark.
And at the moment, she needs to survive. So at the moment, it's a base sort of need of safety and survival.
Yeah,
and she's also now needs to keep this other person safe that she's essentially just
pulled along with her. Yeah, that's okay.
So she's got those two deep basic needs. A new need's going to arise with the baddie, because then that's when she's going to need to come into her own.
This is where we need to, because the baddie should be really a sort of discussion of the theme, and if the theme is who are you as a person, then the baddie needs to be exploring that as well.
Yeah. Well, they've got these new powers, haven't they?
We've got these new powers. So who is that, and what are they doing? So almost we need a kind of mirror story at this point. So with all of these new powers, what's going on?
Yeah, they realise they've got this power to, control people.
Yeah.
With things, or they've got the power to do something which they want to have fun with, or they want to play with, or they want to do something, and that's when you can start, or they start discovering that. And this all because they could as they're practicing their powers, this has massive disruptive effects, which is going to impact on
well, yes,
her.
I like the massive disruptive effects actually, but how about, because essentially we're saying a demon or some sort of elder god or has infected this person. So they have a bit of a shortcut to understanding the powers because of
this person's in their head.
Yeah, the possession, let's call it. And so how about this person, let's call her Selena, because that's the name of the one in Supergirl. So Selena takes the cult leader, and the discussion that we have is between her and the cult. She captures him for some nefarious reason that doesn't necessarily need to be explained, because this is the antagonist and not the A plot. But she is keeping him almost as a pet.
I like the idea of the pet because it's like, oh, no, you are my pet human kind
Yeah.
of thing. Yeah.
And is explaining to him. So if there's anything that we need to know about what's going on with the B plot, with the antagonist plot, then we're going to learn it through him talking to her and her talking to him.
I just had an idea.
Okay.
So again, I think that it could start like you say, she's got him as her pet, treating him like a pet. You know, you will sit on the cushion, that kind of thing. I think with her, she wants to open some kind of some kind of hellmouth, and
just thinking that.
Bring out loads of demons to essentially infect people with, to bring up her little demony mates.
What about to sort of like pave the way for an elder god to break into this reality?
The big god, the big god.
And so the first thing she has to do is bring through the acolytes, and she does that by opening, this portal. That could be why he's still alive. When she is imbued with all of this power, she could destroy all of the cultists apart from him, and go up to him and say, do you want to live? And so she's given him the choice, and he has chosen to live as a insignificant pet. Yes. Rather than it being just a random reason why he's there and nobody else is. So now she needs to bring in the acolyte, and the acolytes, and that coming through opens a portal. It disturbs, let's call it the world above, so the normal city. If their cult is an underground cult, it disturbs the city enough that there is a massive earthquake, and that massive earthquake dislodges the Daily Planet.
It was loosened earlier.
It was loosened earlier by Kara, and so that's when we get this moment. So this is almost like the promise of the movie. This is the bit where this is the first time you really see Supergirl being Supergirl. And she's doing it not because of any moral imperative, not because of any other reason, that she has to do it. It is who she is. We are answering that question.
And this is where we get her cop friend. This is where we can get the start of the uniform. So it's like, he says, you have to hide your face, you have to wear something, you have to do this. And he's given her instructions on how to be a superhero like her cousin. Yeah. So again, she cobbles together, like very much the early Spider-Man, where she cobbles together a very basic thing that hides her face away.
There'd be pictures of Superman all over. Actually, no, you could do that. Yes, she could do that. That might work well.
And then by the end, she meets somebody who can create this uniform for her. At the end of the films, you see her flying up. Very much like the Smallville.
You know what would be really nice, is it? Because we're not getting her to solve the problem of where is Clark or where is Superman. Yeah. If at the very end of the film, Superman does come back and says, "Let me show you. Let me take you under my wing." At that point, would be
the sequel. That's the sequel.
Well, that's the sequel. Yeah, but at that point, you could have the final image being Kara in her uniform, in her costume, which would be quite nice.
I like that. Yeah, because then and she's flying to save somebody. Yeah. She is now becoming the hero she's supposed to be.
Yes,
I like that idea.
And actually, that would play. The sequel would be lovely if it is Clark, who is technically younger than Kara, because he was a baby when he left Krypton and she wasn't. So she knows more about Krypton than he does. But he is older in this world, so he knows more about this world. And Clark being completely overprotective would be a nice kind of breakout for a second.
I'm sure there was something with that. There was something.
I think it has been done. To be fair,
I think it's been done. I vaguely remember him being and her getting. I think that was in Smallville where he met. where we had a very brief encounter and he was very protective. I can't remember, but it sounds familiar. But I do like that because it plays on that thing, because I think he would be. Like, he's been there all his life and she's still learning about humans and how the world works.
Yeah.
You know, and you could have a proper big supervillain in the second film, the film sequel, that they both have to work together to destroy.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of maybe, you know, that's that first time she uses the power with the Daily Planet thing getting wobbly and then falling off, and she has to very quickly, and he's like, you need something to hide your face, you need a uniform.
Yeah.
Where are you going to get one? She goes, don't worry. Boom, boom. Literally goes to a shop, gets something. We've got the red and the blue. We've got the colours.
She can get a Batman cloak.
Oh yeah, maybe like just a costume, a superhero costume from a costume shop that's next door. Just something.
And you can have
really
a great
funny
conversation. Why do I have to hide my face? Superman doesn't hide his face.
Hide his face.
You know,
it's
that's the thing.
Yeah, but he wears glasses. But I can tell who he is. You can have that little thing that everyone does, which is all he has to do is put his glasses on. But I look completely different when I take my glasses off and put my. But yeah,
yes. But I think what we're getting to is the midpoint. You know, because we're basically coming towards like a half hour. Sorry, not half hour. Halfway through the thing. I know not much has happened, but you know that's what happens in movies sometimes.
Not much has happened. We've had a lot of action. In fact, we've actually had quite a lot.
There's a lot of action. There's a lot of, because what we're really talking about now is we're talking in scenes. We're not talking in sequels. So we're talking in scenes that are an action piece happens here. We're not talking in and now the character stops and reflects and then decides what their next movement is. Yeah. Which so these are the bits we're missing out. So there is an awful lot that would happen in that bit. But what we really need to do at that point, you know, we've got to that midpoint. Kara's saved the day, and then yes, you get that whole thing. But that's a really good. It's everything is fantastic moment when she saves that day.
Everything is awesome.
Everything is awesome.
Everything
which
is
means
cool when you're part of a team.
Which means we need to have a moment not long after that. So she gets a costume. We can have, you know, montage things of her saving other people, perhaps. And her learning from the cop about the world, and her trying to save somebody who doesn't need to be saved, or something like that. You know, there's moments that we could play on then, and as that's happening, we need to see the bad guy actually making another move. So these acolytes are already in. Maybe the zombies, the army of zombies are created by her pointing at people and turning them into demon zombies, but the acolytes are different. So Supergirl can get rid of the acolytes, but they can't get rid of the other zombies.
Yeah. And I like the idea. That's good, because then it's that thing of she has to figure out who she can kill, who she can't. Mm-hmm. You know, she's got to simultaneously protect and defend against these.
Yeah, you could have that moment where, you know, she goes, well, why can I kill these people and I can't kill those people?
Yeah, and the cop has to explain it to her, and she's like, but they're attacking that person. No, but they can't help it. Yeah, but I want to. Yeah, I like that idea. Is that
you
moral?
Could do some
she has to learn
really great Evil Dead comedy stuff in the middle.
Oh, you absolutely could. I think at some point it's because I'm just an asshole when it comes to my writing. I will kill every fucker off if I have to. I will kill your favorite characters. Right? I love it when favorite characters die, because I love screaming at the TV, going, "No, you assholes!" Right? That is why Game of Thrones is always one of my favorites. Is because they killed all my favorite characters, and I most of the time I spent crying or screaming at the writer.
Yeah.
But I do like that unsafe feeling. So I like the idea that what really gets her to go for, because at the moment she's still learning, she's fighting these little battles, but something, and I think the baddie, Selena, has to kill the cop. I has to kill him. Like,
okay, yeah, no, that I think is good. So what
And she goes on this
where do we get
rampage.
through? Supergirl is doing stuff and saving the day all over the place, and maybe the Daily Planet starts to report that there is this other person who's come in and stepped in and taken over Superman's role whilst he's not here. And how do we get from that to a point where the cop gets killed? So what is the thing that the bad guy does in order to push Supergirl into that situation? This is the difficult bit. This is the kind of the bad guys close in, the all is lost moment. The worst thing that could possibly happen to Supergirl right now is that you take that one support structure that she's got away from her.
She comes face to face, maybe, with the baddie, with Selina, and they are having a standoff.
maybe is breaking into something. You know what? Maybe they could be doing something to the city's power supply because they need power.
They need the power drain.
To open
power
up.
supply is always a good bet when it comes to baddies. They always like to tap into the power supply.
Yeah. One way or another.
You know, so they need this power supply, this energy to be able to open this gate or this hellmouth to be able to bring the ultimate baddie, the big demonic baddie that's going to carry through into the second film so we can see the baddie coming out just at the end when Clark and Kara are off doing their thing. But that's what this person is trying to do is raise this big, and they need all this power. They can get the acolytes out, they can create the zombies quite easily, but they need this.
And this would be the first time that that she faces anything that can actually really hurt her.
Yes,
because we've gone through that kind of that honeymoon period of being a superhero where everything that you do is awesome.
Yeah,
and now you're getting to a point where suddenly it all goes wrong. And it goes wrong in the worst way possible, and her cop friend is killed.
Yes. Yeah. And she blames herself.
And she doesn't know how to deal with it because you wouldn't necessarily know how to deal with it.
Because then you can have the beautiful sort of collapse of the hero and that sort of psychological crisis of, oh my God, I killed my friend, or I did something. Oh, babe, did you just jump? I did that. I got a cat sitting on my desk in front of me on a cushion, and I moved my hand, and she was because she was quite happily like cleaning herself, and she wasn't expecting me to move. But so you can clean her feet. But she does something. What could she do? So they're face to face. She's face to face with Selina, like her cop friend's with her. Yeah. What could happen? What could she do that then it can't be her actual fault. It is Selina that kills the cop, but she feels responsible for it.
You know what could happen is that she could Selina, Kara goes to attack Selina. Selina stops her with magic, something that, we know the Kryptonians are vulnerable to. So,
Cop sacrifices himself.
Yeah, exactly. He, at the last moment, he runs in front of something that's happening, and he gets absolutely annihilated.
And then, Selina can use a lot of that.
And there's no getting away. There's no two. He is just absolutely evaporated in front of her.
And it's that
completely. Oh my God! That's it.
And Selina can really take that and go.
Panic. She runs or she flies away.
You could have that moment no moment. And Selina's like, look what you've done.
Yes.
Look what you've done.
Brilliant.
You killed the only person who loved you. Nobody wants you here. And again, we're showing that sort of, it's such an evil thing to do to someone.
And not only that, but it could be, again, augmented with magic. So that you know that the pressure on her isn't just physical, but it's mental as well.
Yes, psychological.
And so we've got this dark night of the soul that Kara has to go through.
I want to watch this film now. I want to watch this film we're creating now. So she is now isolated, alone. You've got this bad guy, or baddie who, like, you've got Selina who's after, and she's like, ha 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 ha, evil maniacal laugh.
So there is now nothing to stop Selina, and we get this moment where through fear and through desperation and through grief, Kara's run away, and she finds herself alone, maybe outside the city for the first time.
Yeah.
Sort of looking at this thing and looking at what is about to happen. And she needs to find somebody else.
Yes.
I think you need to get her to a point of realization that even though all this bad stuff has happened, there is still something worth fighting for.
I think we could do a crossover with Lois Lane, or we could have.
I don't think you should bring any of them into it, to be honest.
No.
Well, I think it's stronger if you don't. If you're just relying on her and her experience.
She is yeah. I think again, you've got some of the more powerful things that they've done. Or one of the ones was with Iron Man, where it was a small child who was like, "You are my hero."
Just that.
It's a small thing, and it is so true. It's the small things, like no matter how bad things can be, and no matter how bad, and no matter how sort of defeated you feel, sometimes it is just one person saying, "You inspire me," or "You saved me," or "You did this thing that changed my life for the better." That gives you that strength to keep fighting. I know that's happened to me, where I've, my darkest times, when somebody just said, "You inspired me to keep fighting," or you telling your story, or you doing this, and whatever helped that person, and they sort of reminded me of something that was actually good about myself that I liked, and they pointed that out to me, or something that I wasn't, and it can make such a big difference, such a small thing. Obviously the negative will always have a bigger impact, but sometimes all it takes is just the funny bone. It's not funny. But sometimes it doesn't have to be a big gesture. Sometimes it can be a small thing. Maybe a child is trapped. Maybe a family is trapped. A child is crying to get her family out of this thing that's collapsed, and a mum and a sister, her whole family's trapped in there, and Kara's walk.
Oh,
there we go.
Maybe. What about if when she retreats, the place she retreats to is the crater where her pod was? Maybe the pod is still there, but for various different reasons, she hasn't gone back to it. We weave that into the story. You can put barriers in a way to go back to it. Maybe it was, the
army
or something was there. Maybe you could see members of police trying to lift this capsule out of the ground, and they can't do it, and they try machines, and it won't lift out, and it's just sort of stuck there. But at this point, she returns to it, and the same guy that we saw in the opening of the film, when the same homeless guy who said, "Who are you?" That's the other. That's the. That's the moment she retreats back to that pub, and he says, "It's you again." And he's the person who brings her around.
Yeah.
In the pod, she finds
shivers.
In the pod, she finds the cape that Superman was wrapped in the red cape, and she takes off the Batman thing,
costume,
puts the cape around her, and there needs to be something else that she is told, which kind of pushes her to the thing that this is how you defeat the bad guy, and it needs to be something along the lines of, if you can't hit people until they change their mind, then maybe you just got to talk to them instead, or something like that. The message at that point is you've got to outthink the bad guy instead of just going and trying to hit it, and that gives her enough inspiration to get back into the fight.
Maybe the homeless man tells her his story, or
that would work well. He's the kind of Gandalf character. If you were doing a normal hero's journey, this would be in kind of Act 1 or Act 2, the meeting of the mentor bit. But it doesn't have to be in there. You could stick it at the end, and it could be just as powerful, But yes, he could talk about his story.
And
maybe it'd be a long shot and it might be too convoluted, but maybe he could be Martian Manhunter.
Yes.
But you don't know that straight away. You don't know
We
that
don't know
necessarily
that at
until
this
the
point.
end. Yeah.
Yeah. When he
Because
becomes...
there's so many parallels between Martian Manhunter's story and Kal-El's story and Kara's story that actually that might work quite well. But he's hiding, and he's a shapeshifter, so he's hiding from...
So why isn't he helping with this? Why wouldn't he help physically? Why would he continue to hide? I mean, to be fair,
because he's being hunted by another Martian.
Okay.
Because there are white Martians and green Martians, and the white Martians hunt the green Martians, and he's a green Martian.
Ah.
So he's come to Earth to try and
hide.
And his family were killed in the process as well. So he's very clearly doesn't work. And this could play into his story as well.
And give you a spin-off.
Yes, because perhaps it's...
Are you listening, DC? You need to give us all your storylines. We'll write them. We'll make them good.
Perhaps it's seeing Kara do this stuff that actually pushes him to go, I need
to fight back rather than hide. Yeah, especially because his story, isn't he? He lost all his family, lost everyone, then came to Earth and he met somebody else, and that goes wrong, and just his life just keeps going bad, and I like that idea that he turns out to be, and it's just a very brief look at the Martian Manhunter, because this could be them building into something more for a franchise, for a Supergirl franchise on this.
You could even put that into the story where she says, "What do you know? You're just a human," and he could say, "I'm not human," and show her his true face.
Yes,
and then she could say, "Can you help me?" and he can almost go and do it, and then I can't. If they find me, they'll kill me.
Yeah. He's like, I can't help you. That it's, you have to do this alone.
Yeah,
I cannot help. But at the end, again, you could have something. I don't know, because isn't the Martian Manhunter have the fear of fire or something about fire that he can't go near?
Oh God, I think so.
So that could be the
be,
thing that she's having to stop as well. So something, whatever they're doing, creates a massive fire. So he cannot help her with that. She's the only one that can deal with that. Or he goes to help and something stops him. Maybe at first he's like, I cannot help.
Again, if you're very early in the Martian Manhunter storyline, then it might very well be that he is just scared of being found out.
Yeah,
and that he needs a bigger push. So we have
that really early. So you have him saying, I can't. They'll find me. They'll hunt me. You have to do this alone, but you can do this. And
because if
I know your cousin, essentially,
that's a compelling argument. If they find me, they'll kill me, and I'm the last one left.
That's a pretty
more
powerful
compelling argument than, well, I don't want to. It's tiring.
Yeah,
I
think So if they try and if they find me, they'll kill me. I'm the last one left. So she's like, you're on your own, but I know your cousin. And I know
I've seen your cousin.
I've seen your cousin.
I know you can do this.
I know. Yeah, you have the power.
Gives her that power and everything to kind of join.
Your greatest power is in your head, not in your fists.
Yes.
Essentially.
Yeah.
That's and then she has to outright outsmart Selena and all the baddies and do something that pushes the Selena and all the acolytes into so as soon as Selena's gone back into the hellmouth, all the zombies just drop and they're fine after that, and they start coming to, and they're like, oh, what happened? All the acolytes get yanked back in.
See, this is where you could do, Martian Manhunter's transformation can happen off screen. That his realization that she might need a little bit more help than that. So after the whole inspiration thing, she clearly needs to sort of fly off and is going to, I suppose, look at what's happening in the city and try and figure out how she can solve that problem. The problem we've got right now is that we've got a main character who can't talk to anybody because there's nobody else around her. She needs to see somebody being transformed.
So again, we could have that sort of little inspiration talk, but John Jones, Martian Manhunter, can say, "Look, let me." And she's like, "But it's worthless. It's pointless." It's like, "Let me show you that humanity is worth saving."
Yeah,
because she's going, "Yeah, but they're trying to kill me too. I don't believe in humanity." He's like, "No, they're worth saving, and I'll show you how." And he does something, and he shows her something, like he shows her images of a child trying to. They get their parents out, images of a parents risking their lives to save their child. You know, people risking their lives to save each other, and go, "No, this is what humanity is truly about. They're flawed. They've got flaws,
yes.
but you know,
don't give up on them.
Don't give up on them.
Bear with me for a sec, but don't give up on them." And then at the end of it, she can say, "Come with me, help them." And he can say, I can't, they'll kill me. And she could say, "I'm going to keep asking because I'm not going to give up on you."
The cat agrees. I don't know if you could hear it in the background, but the cat agrees. She can't even hear it, but she could agree. She agrees. I like that. Yeah,
we're nearly there. We're nearly at the end of this thing.
Yeah. So she's now got this inspiration. Cool. She's been shown what humanity is like. It's flawed, yes, but they are worth it. You have to believe in them. You have to keep pushing, and you have to keep fighting. They need you, Kara.
Yeah.
And she's like, "They need you too." And he's like, "I can't because I will die. They will kill me. The white Martians will kill me." She's like, "I'm never going to give up on you. You know that." And then, boom, she flies away. And he's kind of just left there going, "Okay." Like, you know, that moment of, oh. Yeah. So he is now left to process that. And then we go back to Kara, who's now given, you know, she's now got this plan.
Yes.
She knows what she's going to do. She's going to outsmart, what's her name?
I think we need to see Kara taking a moment to look at what's happening, to kind of analyze what's happening. We focus in on various different things that are going on. She sees Selena turning somebody, and maybe she doesn't know that they can be saved, but maybe she hopes that they can.
Yes.
Because hope is obviously always a big theme in Superman stuff anyway. So maybe that's where we go with that. And she works out that there are two sorts of bad guy. There are people who've been turned, and then there are these other acolytes who are, maybe the acolytes are turning them as well.
Yeah.
And then Selena is doing the big opening of a portal thing.
Yes. How could she figure out the difference? How could she figure out all that?
Oh, well, they look completely different.
Okay. And then,
if you imagine
imagine
having
anything about what humans are and who they, I get that.
But imagine you have an altar, and then there was one person at the top of the altar, and they're opening a portal to something, and then either side you've got, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 things that look maybe like Egyptian gods or something like that. Strange heads, human bodies, and you can see them pointing staffs and turning normal people into this army.
Oh, I've got an idea of how she could figure things out. Right. So taking that idea, so you've got these sort of weird sort of creatures next to Selena zapping people. So Selena's not actually doing it herself. The zappers are doing it, or the acolytes are doing it. So they're zapping. So she wants someone zapping, and after having seen this person zapping a person, and that person turning into, or the baddie to zapping a person, or the acolyte zapping a person and turning them into a zombified creature, you know, that acolyte sees Kara. My cat is getting impatient. Sees Kara and goes to fight her. So they first go head to head. She kills the acolyte, and then she spots the fact that all of the people that the acolyte turned comes back to reality.
Yes.
And that's how she figures it out.
And at that point, I think the other acolytes need to see what's happening, and one of them will say, with subtitles, "Protect the high priestess, whatever it is, to protect the portal. And so they send up something so that the majority of that portal is protected, that Kara has to now get through. But obviously things are still coming out of it, so there isn't an entrance. There needs to be a way of her being able to get into it as well. We need to be able to solve that problem in the future. So she has to battle through these other people. She needs to incapacitate the big bulk of the army without actually hurting them.
Yeah.
Whilst these acolytes, are fighting her at the same time, using the staffs to propel out magical energy, which we know will hurt her. So she has to either dodge that or find ways of disrupting it or knocking it back.
And then they can make the ground uneven for the person who. That's the original film.
That's the original one. Well, they could do that and then realize it doesn't work.
Yeah, because she just goes. Because that would be a nice throwback to the original film. So you could have that thing with the lava, and then she just sort of stands there, looks at them, and just hovers.
You can have the thing, the floor suddenly becomes really uneven, and she just hovers and goes, "Who would think that would work?" And then it's a call to.
That's the akin to the Superman moment where he's in handcuffs and then they go, "Oh, now you can come out," and he just goes tink and then fucks off. It's that equivalent. We need that equivalent widget with all the grounds going and the floors, and then the floor disappears. Oh, maybe the floor disappears underneath her and she's just hovering and going, seriously?
Yeah.
Like, dickheads. That moment of where she sort of does a face palm and goes, ugh!
I like the idea of stuff that, maybe they send a beam of energy across to Kara, who grabs a dustbin lid or something and holds it up as like a shield, and then it turns into a snake or something, and then she has to battle off that, and
a giant serpent or something.
There's lots of things that are being thrown at her, so it's not just a case of we hit this thing and then we hit this thing and then we get to the solution at the end, but there's more obstacles along the way.
So there could be that moment. So I've just got the image in my head. So she's standing there. You've got Selena with all her acolytes. And then Selena goes, ba-ba, and then goes, poof, and the floor goes and it falls down and she's just hovering and just looks down, looks up at Selena, makes a quip and sort of like, really? And then Selena just goes, boom. And of course she gets sent flying. And she's like, did you think that was all I could do, child? And she's like, no. And so of course she then comes in and she grabs, and then they start sending the bit, and then she gets the bin lid and does that, and it ka-dong, ka-dong, and so then they go poof, and then the bin lid turns into a massive serpent or some kind of beast, and then she's like, oh shit, and then she has to battle that. This is a really good story, and this is right.
Essentially what we're doing is we're mapping out a big CG battle at the end of it, which is one of the things I don't like about the superhero films, but in this instance I think it might work. I like the idea that actually Kara's getting beaten down, that despite everything, that she's not winning this fight, that she's nearly there, but then they just
throw everything at her, like everything, and she keeps getting back up and she keeps fighting and she keeps going no matter what they're throwing at her, because I like that idea, because that's the thing in the original that I didn't like, is she gave up too quickly on so many occasions. She was like, I can't do it anymore. No, you can do it. Oh, okay then, and after she's had this talk with the Martian Manhunter, now she is determined. She is not going to give up. She is never going to. You are going to.
And I think we'd have a good sort of few minutes of this battle where things aren't going her way, and
I think at some point, that she could go, you will have to kill me to stop me from, I will go until I die. And then Selena goes, all right, and some kind of kryptonite thing happens, like we need a kryptonite moment where she gets shot with kryptonite.
Okay.
I don't know how or why, but something happens that, not necessarily kryptonite, but something happens that actually nearly kills her, that gets close. Well, you went, that's an idea moment.
No, it's an idea moment because that's the point that Martian Manhunter turns up.
Yes, so she's like,
you need to really,
but she's still going, even though she's like, she's bleeding. She's shocked because nothing's been able to get to bleed this far, and. I don't like the idea if she has to be saved by a man.
No, she doesn't. She's not saved by a man. He just gives her the right information.
Okay.
He could be out there fighting things as well. The focus needs to be Supergirl saving the day because it's her film. But I think if he can be there because what she's doing at the moment is she's fighting off. She's doing everything that she was doing before. She's hitting things. She's punching things. But the thing that the takeaway is you need to use your might. Now, in a different story, they would have a callback and a voiceover and remember to use your mind. But in this one, we've got a character that could actually turn up and say to her, make sure you're doing this, make sure you're doing that, look at here, this is what's going on. You can use that, and then she uses it. That she starts to see, we talked about it last episode, I think, where we talked about the three-dimensional Euclidean
six-dimensional geographical physics.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
that's what she does. She uses that. She figured, that moment where you see Sherlock entering his mind palace in the thing, or where you see somebody figuring out the trajectory of something in a show, and it stops, and the plan kind of comes to her in her mind, and we see it as the audience. We see that moment where she is finally figuring out the smart way of doing the things that she needs to do.
And then she becomes that leader. And I think that's when she can be turned around to the Martian Manhunter and say, right, I need you to distract her whilst I do this. And it's not him saving her. It's not that. It's man and woman working together as equals, which is the message we want to fucking send.
He's the person. He's the catalyst, but he's not the savior.
Yeah. But it's when they do work together, they're working together as equals. They're working together as even. It's not him saving her. He just inspires her, and she goes, "Yes, I've got that. I've got this plan. I need you to do this." Yeah. And he listens, and they work together. And
you could even in that moment, you could still have that moment. I can't help, and she looks at him and says, "Yes, you can.
Yes, you can."
And that. Again, it's that leadership moment where
and they inspire each other because they are both true leaders.
He deals with like foot soldiers and stuff, so he's not really doing the main stuff. And then Kara.
Well, he can do things that will stop them without harming them as well, can't he? So he's got certain powers that are less harmful than.
And you could see that you could see him because he has various different mind powers. You could see him, fighting them off at one point, but then trying to put them to sleep and trying to, whilst he's still dealing with acolytes firing at him as well at the same time. And as we're seeing him do that, we're seeing Kara put her plan into place, where we see that she's noticed something over on the left-hand side of whatever it is, and she can move that over somewhere. And the practical upshot of it is that we push Selena, instead of the power coming out of this portal, we push Selena to a point where the power's going back into the portal, and we make like a donut thing, and it starts to suck all of the accolade. I keep saying accolades, it's acolytes, isn't it?
Acolytes,
into the portal. And as you do, you see sections of this army sort of drop to the ground and turn back into humans.
Yeah.
And slowly, with the help of a few punches and pushes and stuff, then that happens, and that's it. The battle is over, and we need a pause. We need a moment where.
This is a good point for me to go for a wee, by the way, but I'm riveted.
Well, we nearly finished. We're very nearly finished.
I'm quite literally doing bum cheek dancing right now.
We need that moment where they're standing together and they're looking at what's happened, and maybe she turns to him and says, "You better go. Protect yourself." And he disappears.
Yeah.
And then the camera pulls back, and we see a white Martian.
Ooh.
Who's looking on and looking at what's happening.
Yeah. And then we see him do some kind of thing with and to contact other white Martians.
Yes.
Because that then is opening up for so we don't get the big bad demon, we get other Martian Manhunters. The bad Martian Manhunters coming down for the sequel.
For the sequel. Yeah,
which
possibly.
is where you can go, or the spin-off, which is focused on Martian Manhunter, where he then pulls her in for the help that
And
he needs.
then we get our final image. You know, a news report which is saying, something like, people are starting to call her Supergirl.
Yeah.
So it doesn't need to be the sort of flying off at the well. It still could be, but you get that moment, and then you get to see her tackling something maybe a little bit bigger, which is not part of the movie properly. But then that's it. That's our final image. She's gone off then to save people, and the film is over.
And if you want us to write that movie, give us loads of money and we'll do it. I bet.
Dear Warner Brothers.
Dear Warner Brothers.
Yeah, but well, yes.
I would watch that movie. I genuinely would.
I'd watch that movie. And I think, as you go through the process, and if you've done anything with film before, as you go through that process, it changes dramatically from where you first start to where you end up. But, there's ideas there that are...
I mean, we've completely ignored all of the original plot completely. Like, we just trashed it. It's just not there. But
because the original plot isn't good, but like I said, the characters are good, and the acting's good, the effects are good. But if you were updating it, you want something that is sort of fun and still new and still fresh.
Some really good social messages going in there. We've got some really good sort of like poignant moments where it's like themes and do you know what I mean?
But it's understated as well. It's not like what I really hate when you're doing some sort of allegory is if that allegory is so in your face that you can't get past it, because it puts people off. I mean, people don't, as a rule, people don't like political stories. Something like Game of Thrones is different because it's not a political story. It's a story about politics. Yeah. Just see what I mean. Whereas something which is so akin to today's political conversations, it's too much like a kind of a lecture on what's happening, and people kind of want to get away with that. But it doesn't mean that you can't include those themes, and it doesn't mean that you can't have good, even sometimes allegorical stories that actually do point to the things that you want it to point to, without, if somebody doesn't want to involve themselves with that, they can just watch it and have fun.
Yeah, we use a lot of symbolism and metaphors for things like that, don't you? And it's I think that's the best way of doing it in a way that's going to still engage the majority of people. I mean, I love watching things like that, and I love being able to spot the metaphors and stuff. But yeah, I like that, and I would actually watch that movie, I think. Give us loads of money and we'll make it. And, I can't say that enough. Warner Brothers, give us lots of money and we'll make it. Yeah, we'll make that shit. But I reckon I would watch that. And I think that would be a really powerful film.
Yeah.
And then you've got, and because I do think, sadly, unfortunately, because of all the stuff that's been going on with the DC universe and everything, I think they've massively, massively done themselves a disservice. They've recently done the latest Suicide Squad they did was freaking brilliant, like to the point where I watched it twice in a row because I loved it so much. The first Suicide Squad was a bit, but then the second one, I mean, it's just Harley Quinn that does it for me, like every time. It's that scene where she's just escaped, and it's a scene that's on the adverts where she's just escaped this kidnapping, like single-handedly. Killed everyone, and she gets in this taxi cab and she's relaxing, and then she sees all the other super villains or the guys like sneaking around the back to save her, and then they've all got this complex plan in place, and then you see them climbing up the wall, and she just goes, "What you doing?" And it's like, yeah, we're here to save you. It was a good plan. Well, I can go back inside, and it's I mean, the whole film's worth it for that moment, but it's that. It's got a beautiful balance of comedy, action. That's what I want my DC films to be. That's not, Batman getting pissed off with Superman punching him in the face and then stopping because they have their mum's got the same freaking name, or, that type of thing. That for me, that made me very angry because I don't think that would have happened. I don't think Batman would hate, would have, it just didn't feel right for that thing. And I don't particularly like Ben Affleck for a variety of reasons. He's a pompous
That's our podcast. We've done nearly 3 podcasts worth of material on this, which is a lot of stuff. But I think I'm quite pleased with what we ended up with. I think we've done quite well. And that's it for this episode of Murdering a Podcast. Sorry if it was a bit longer. And if you like the longer ones, then let us know. We will try and give you extra length every week.
Yeah. Not just Earth.
But until next time, thanks for coming along. And don't forget, you can find show notes and all sorts of information and information about our Patreon over at murderingapodcast.com.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time. Goodbye, good luck, good riddance. No, that's the other one.
No, it's not good riddance. Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye to you.
That was Murdering a Podcast, and if you'd like to find out more information about the podcast, the Mystery Lounge, or anything mentioned in the show, please head over to murderingapodcast.com. The music was The Secret of Tiki Island by Kevin MacLeod, and the producer was Steve Meller. Until next time, thanks for listening.